Hey everybody, I'm Charles Morgan from Comic Week, and we're back at Alpha Comics. I'm sorry I was out last week. I kind of was like under the weather. But I'm back here with Briana Beebe, and we are going to look at this week's new comics for you. There's a lot of new #1s, some spooky October fare for you as we wrap up the hallowed month of October, and some things that we're definitely going to be reading as soon as the doors open. So what do you got this week?
So, there is this title that you don't just have the #1, you also have the #2 and the #3. I'm not quite sure why, but it happened.
It's almost like getting the trade paperback by paying for each individual issue in the same week.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of big titles. One of them I'm going to read is this. This is the dark multiverse version of The Death of Superman, which is an iconic modern comic book, a classic. I remember when that title came out, not only did Harlan Ellison go on the Sci-Fi Network to sort of say, this isn't the only time they've ever killed Superman, folks, but my dad made me drive like to the next town over to get a copy of that title. And he gives me like 20 bucks. So I get to the store and I'm like, do you have The Death of Superman? I must have been like the 500th, idiot to walk through the door. And he goes, yeah. I'm like, well, how much is it? And he's like, it's $18.50. So this is the day it came out. So like my dad's like, he sent me all the way out here to get it. I'm not going to leave without it. So I pay the 20 bucks. I get the $1.50 back. I get the comic book and I go back home and I'm like, here's your comic book. And he's like, okay, cool. Where's my change? I'm like, there is no change. He's like, what did you do? Why'd you buy $20 for a comic book? He's like, are you sending me? But anyway, you don't need to do all that to get this title. This is a sort of an alternate version, an alternate universe that was made possible by the original Death of Superman storyline. DC Comics also put out a $1 version of that title, a reprint, which is about the going price for the original issue now or so.
I mean, yeah, we were talking about it earlier. It might be like closer to $4 now. I'm not sure. It depends because you also have like the bagged variants, in the bag, all that jazz. But it's not necessarily a super expensive book as is.
Right.
But that being said, it is nice to have a reprint version if you don't want to have to break out the other one.
Right. Well, I guarantee you one thing: the reprint has a much lower print run than the original. That's true. So anyway, this came out. I look forward to reading it because I kind of dug that story. Also, this is my pick of the week, folks. This is Joe Hill's Basket Full of Heads. So this is Joe Hill obviously is a pen name. This is actually Stephen King's son, and this I read this earlier, and it's basically a horror title with a lot of suspense. Remind me of some of those EC comics, but with a little bit more of a build-up. And it's not like one of those shock value comics, at least not yet in this first issue. It takes place in Maine in a small town. There's like a couple, and the guy is like a police officer, and there's some escaped convicts that are on the loose. It's got all the makings of a nice creepy house horror title. And so this is definitely something I think you're going to want to check out. This is going to be a new series, a new direction for DC Comics with these horror titles. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it develops.
Plus, it's great for Spooky Month.
Spooky month.
Chill and give some kids some candy and read spooky comics.
So what else are you reading?
So, I am very curious about Vampire State Building, if only because of the King Kong cover. It's talking about the fuzz going on. There's a lot of things happening.
Can you imagine a vampire King Kong? How awful that would be.
Be so bad. It would be so not good for anyone involved. I am curious about it. I didn't get a chance to read the first one because I think we sold out of the first issue.
Yeah, that was one of those key collector comics titles. Of course, you have Charlie Adler's art, coming off of Walking Dead. So it doesn't have the same style. It's a completely different type of look for it. But definitely, it's interesting. Vampires and giant skyscrapers. So it's an interesting title. You also pulled Jeff Lemire has a new title with DC Comics on their Black Label. This is a magazine format size. So this is Joker Killer Smile. There's a lot of Joker going around lately.
Yeah, well, and it's like this movie came out recently or something like that. This one might actually be able to fit in a magazine bag, which I'm actually more pro, honestly.
Yeah, so in this title, you have basically a familiar refrain where people are running in, professional people are running into the Joker and they're trying to like make sense of his insanity, and then it just rubs them the wrong way and makes them start to be part of his worldview, which is twisted and toxic as F. Also, there is this title, another situation of somebody who probably should spend a little less time at Arkham. This is the new issue of Harleen. This is number 2, and a similar story. You get to see the origin story of Harley Quinn and all her brutal glory.
Yeah, and the art in it is pretty intense.
Right, that's a pretty captivating, bow-hunky kind of Joker there, which I'm more used to the creepy weirdo Jokers. So.
Well, he has to come across as attractive, and then he breaks out that one.
Right. So number 1, this is another one of my keys of the week. This is Fantastic Four, Grand Design, number 1. Comes with a couple varieties of retro cover. Of course, this is a distillation of the entire history of the Fantastic Four, with all the retconning from sort of the modern version of the story, but taken back. If you flip through the pages, you see that classic art. It's sort of a faux vintage look to it. The X-Men Grand Design was a fantastic series that sort of kept me interested in the X-Men while the Marvel started to work on the modern reboot, which they have now undertaken. So Fantastic Four Grand Design number 1 is definitely something you want to check out.
Yeah, and like the graphic novels for it are also a larger format, more like traditional newsprint books, which is actually kind of neat because you don't see that a whole lot. So they really went with like old school styling for the whole thing.
Right. Usually don't talk about heavy metal too much on our videos, but this is the music issue. So there's a lot of like classic, harder rock bands have comic book stories in this title. I found Heavy Metal, the magazine, actually when I was in 1st grade, so I probably wasn't the target demo, but I was like totally captivated by it. My uncle was in college at the time; he was totally into it. But yeah, like I just remember that crazy movie, that cartoon movie, and how much I was hooked on it. And then as an adult, I've gone back to the 1970s and 1980s and picked some of the iconic covers up of Heavy Metal. So this is something definitely cool. You want to check out if you like the genre of music and you want to see that sort of a more mature presentation.
Yeah, and then we also have a couple more giant issues. We got a Ghost one, fits for Halloween, as well as Aquaman. These are neat just because you get like a whole storyline, normally mostly chunks of storylines. So it's going to be more like an anthology issue than anything else, which can be really nice if you haven't been really caught up in what's currently going on in the extended DC existence. There's even a Scooby-Doo one that we did a couple of weeks ago.
Oh yeah. That sell out?
Yeah. I think we have a couple left. That one actually did really well, especially because younger readers, it's always nice when you can have it all in one chunk.
Yeah, this reminds me of that like 1970s vibe. You saw a lot of those giant-sized issues like this, which is what they were referring to when they're creating this product. And these used to be these are the Walmart stories they were putting out, weren't they? Like
I know, like the Wonder Woman Come Back to Me. I know that was the Walmart stories. I don't know if the Giants are the same vibe or not. Off the top of my head.
All right, so we got some number 1s for you guys. Quite a few of them. We're just going to go through them individually. If we got any comments, we're going to make them. So from Valiant, you have Roku, number 1. Is this about like the sort of the competitor to the Apple TV and you flip channels? Is that what this is?
I don't think so, because there's a lady person who does not look very happy.
Yeah, so that's definitely not somebody who's killing.
Yeah, totally.
So then we have Snow White Zombie Apocalypse. This is a sort of a cool, there's like a throuple. That's a word that's been in the news lately. A throuple with Snow White and Rapunzel and a guy, Prince Charming, and they're trying to survive a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, so another spookier book. Hellraiser. I mean, not Hellraiser.
Yes, this is caught us there.
That's a different book.
Yeah, so this is a Hellblazer one-shot. From the Sandman universe from DC Comics, a Black Label. You see that they've gone away from the Vertigo and they're moving towards their new branding. I saw this. This is Pink Lemonade, a really cool, interesting looking indie comic. And I saw this on the solicits, and I couldn't wait to actually see it in person. It's definitely cool. You got this and the variant cover, and I think I'm probably going to get both of them. So if they're not here when you come in, and my camera guy's flipping me the bird because he wants one, but he'll have to go somewhere else, I guess. And then Giant Days #1. This is a as time goes by.
Don't know. I don't know if this is supposed to be the very last issue or not, because I knew the last issue was coming up. This might be. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah, that's a very good title.
Oh, yeah, it's a great title.
And then you got Monster Planet #1 from Xenoscope. And here you go, A Warrior Nun.
This cover.
Yes.
When I first saw it, I was like, I have no context for what's going on, but we're at least going to get one or two, if only for the novelty of the cover alone.
This is I would call this a Affinity Gauntlet, not exactly the full Infinity Gauntlet. It's only got one gem on it, but there's some TNA in the middle. It's not gratuitously nude or anything, but the nun fights, and there's some scantily clad women she fights. So if that's your jazz, you want to pick that up. This is a title, probably the important title. This is Dead Man Logan, 12 of 12. And you see the first appearance of Danielle Cage as Thor and the alternate universe. So there you go.
Is it Cage or Page?
Cage.
Okay, cool.
Free Cage. And we got Excalibur, #1.
Yep. Continuing on with the mini X-Men titles, I'm a little concerned we're gonna run out of this one. Marauders, we had enough for that day, and then after that it was like, well, never mind. And we actually ordered a little bit heavier than we would normally would with X-Men side stories because of post House and Powers and how everything's kind of diverging from that series. So I would say if you can find it, get it.
Yeah, Hickman's really got that X-Men buzz going on.
Yeah, a lot of X-Men stuff right now, because even consistently, the True Believers are coming out that are going to be X-Men based. You're seeing a lot of origin stories for characters. They had done Jubilee and Pyro at least so far, as well as a couple other characters. So you're going to have a lot of X-Men-y stuff as long as this kind of wave lasts.
Cool. And that about wraps it up for the titles that we have coming out this week. Lots of cool stuff that we didn't actually have time to cover. So, you're in the Richmond area, be sure to stop by our friends at Alpha Comics and buy them out of titles, popular titles and unpopular titles. And if you're on Comic Week this week, I'm giving away a copy of Gamora #1. And this is the Lupacino variant cover. And it's a really neat. I always like Gamora as a character. So we'll be giving this away in this big, thick, sturdy CGC case. Our drawing will be next Wednesday at noon. So you have plenty of time to enter and to win. So for Alpha Comics and for Comic Week, we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye, guys.